I'll tell you how we met her. Are you aware of the fact that Miss Rodgers was a Christian Scientist? No? Do you know what a Christian Scientist is?
Yes. So.
Okay. Well, she was a devout Christian Scientist. She and her mother and my wife and I. And we met her in Las Vegas when she came to church on a Wednesday night meeting. And we didn't know who she was. She couldn't find the taxi cab couldn't find the church, and so she was a little flustered when she finally got there. And then after the church was over, she came back and apologized and all that sort of thing. And that's when we found out who she was. Otherwise, I don't think anybody. We come from a different era than you do. We grew up with her. I mean, she and Fred Astaire, all those pictures. We went to see the first one, and we were fans from then on, never dreaming that someday we'd meet her. But she came to church, and she came every Wednesday night, and the second Wednesday night she came, she didn't have anybody with her, and we took her home, stopped and had ice cream and talked, and it grew. She was there at that time in Las Vegas in Hello Dolly, and it was there about almost 4 months, and it was quite a show. And we went to see it once a week anyway. And she invited us one Wednesday night. She invited us to come and see the show. We hadn't seen it yet. To come and see it, and we went to see it. And of course, it's quite a musical. And when we got there, the maitre d' says, "Oh yes, the Grahams." He says, "Major, Captain," and the room captain came and says, "Take the Grahams to the box." And he took us up to a little box. It only had 6 chairs in it, and it's right at the corner of the stage. And let me tell you, she put on her knack for us. And we got to be great buddies the time she was there. Then she left, went to London and Maine for a year, and came back, and she called us and said she was back in the States, and would we come down to her house. And she had a house in, it's the Thunderbird Country Club down in the valley. And so we drove down one weekend, spent the weekend with her, and she had moved into the house. Nothing was put around. Nothing was put away. And we spent weekend after weekend driving down and fixing her house up for her. We had a big time. It was really fun to be with her. And I want you to know that Ginger was a real lady. She didn't drink, smoke, swear. She just was a real lady. And everybody thinks she was kind of a tall gal. Ginger and I could stand barefooted, nose to nose. I mean, she was not a tall person. And Fred Astaire, when I met him the first time, he wasn't even as tall as I was. I'll say. I mean, this is a shock. You think of it. And anyway, we kept this up for, several years. I was still in the Air Force for a while, and then I got out of the Air Force. And we spent a lot of time with her. We just go down and stay with her for weeks at a time. I can remember one time we went down and spent a month the first time, and then it grew up to one time we spent 6 months there without ever coming home. But she was a real lady. So no character about it. We'd have breakfast, and sometimes we'd go out for lunch, or I'd go out and pick up stuff for lunch for us. And of course, dinner was always. My wife was quite a cook, and she really laid on some food for Ginger. I'll tell you that.
So now, when she performed for you, could you tell that was extra special than when you went to the performance in Vegas? Was it extra special, or?
Okay, they put us up in this box,
Mm-hmm.
and you're about 8 to 10 foot above the stage. You're looking right down on it, We see the whole thing. And we're sitting there. As I said, I was in the Air Force. I was a major and a squadron commander in a wing. And I looked over the railing, and sitting down, down on the row, in the third row back, was this full colonel who was the base commander. I don't work for him. The only relation I had was we had an exercise we went through once in a while. But I knew him, and I leaned over and looked down at him like that, and he looked up at me and he said, "What the hell are you doing up there?" And I said, "I belong up here." And you might know, Ginger put on this show, and the big restaurant act that goes on, we went through that, and she gets all through it, and she ends up right down below it, and she curses. She says, "You like that? Yeah, do it again. Do it again." And she went through the whole damn thing again.
Anything different, or just the exact same thing?
She did that just with my wife and I. Anyway, come Monday morning, I go back to the squadron. The first Saturday, I go in the first. Says, "I don't know, Major." He said, "But the base commander has called you twice this morning already." I said, "Well, I'll go up and see him." So I walked a couple blocks up, and walked in. The secretary said, "Colonel's waiting for you." I said, "Yes." So I knocked on the door, went in, and he looked at me, and he said, "Jim." And I thought, "Oh boy." He said, "Jim, I want to know how the hell you ended up in that box up there, and I'm sitting down here on the floor." He said, "How come you ended up in that box up there?" And he says, "And is that encore for you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, how come?" I said, "But Colonel, when you're a personal friend of the star of the show, what do you expect?" I said, "I expect the best. I expect to sit up in the high roller box and things like that." He said, "Oh, don't give me that, or your personal." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do, Colonel." I said, "I know your wife Peg," and I said, "I'll tell you, next Friday evening I'll set it up and we'll go see her show again, okay?" So Friday night, 8 o'clock, we're back to the Riviera. And I had gotten Ginger to the maitre d', and the maitre d' put us back up, and put the four of us up in that box. And Ginger went through that whole thing, and she did an encore for the Colonel. And I thought his wife was going to pass away. And so after the show, well, we went down. Now this Colonel is about 6'2", built like a boxer, that GI haircut of his, and a real good-looking guy. And he and Ginger, they got to talking. I thought they were never going to quit talking. And his wife, who was a great talker, she would say, That's all she would say. She would never open her mouth. But anyway, the next weekend, the word had got around that the Grims are friends of Ginger Rodgers. Well, my boss wanted to know about it, and I told him. I said, "Yes, we have met her and friends of hers." Okay. So I get a call 2 weeks later, and it's the secretary of a 2-star general on the base. And she says, "The general understands that you know Ginger Rodgers." I said, "Yes, we've become quite acquainted." She says, "Do you think you could get him in the show?" I said, "Well, I'll try. I'll call you back." So I called the different people, and Maynard D says, "Sure." He says, "One thing though, Major," he says, "if you two show up with your wives, you are to be in full uniform." Okay. So we showed up on Friday night, and the general and his wife just had a ball and met Ginger. So we became famous on base. That's the people who know Ginger Rodgers.